Welcome to another edition of Mobile Rolling. And after the short break, it'll be my pleasure to be talking to a very highly respected gentleman that's been in the industry for most of his life. Welcome back to Mobile Rolling. It's my pleasure to have Chris Hartwig. Some people know him as a former chairman of the board. He's a breeder. He's a highly respected executive in the business that he operates. Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you?
Very well, mate. Thank you for having me along.
That's okay.
Appreciate it.
A lot of people would have known your name over the last 10, 15, 20 years with horses and work and the board and stuff like that. So it's always nice to put a face to the name. So we'll probably start at the start. You're an Adelaide-born lad, or?
Yep, born in Adelaide, 1970.
1970.
54.
A young 54.
That's it.
So whereabouts were you born? What school did you go to? What's your young life to end up getting into harness racing?
So grew up in Paraka, ended up having a bit of a stint in the Adelaide Hills as well, in the latter start of primary school, and then when I was living with my mum up in the hills, and then when I went to high school, came back down to Paraka and then went to Northfield High School, living with Dad. And that's probably what started the journey into harness racing, where I guess Dad and I would often go to the TAB and then out to Globe Derby on a Saturday night back in the days of the big bookmaker ring down there in the car park. Probably had, 20, 30 bookmakers there. And it was a good experience, and we just loved going there every Saturday night. So
with Northfield High, that's not there anymore?
No, it became Sir Ross Smith Secondary, and then it's been bowled over now for
housing.
For housing, yeah.
That's common these days.
Way of the world.
So when you went to school, did you go to university or do anything like that? How'd you go?
Yeah, so I finished, did Year 12 high school, and then went straight into uni and did an accounting degree for 3 years, and from there started employment for tube makers who end up becoming One Steel. These days they operate as InfraBuild, and I worked there for 15 years with a stint in Mount Gambier for 4 years, and actually was on the committee of the Mount Gambier Harness Racing Club while I was down there.
So how old were you then?
I went down there when I was 23 as the branch manager down in Mount Gambier.
So what were you doing? What was their role there?
A steel business, so we were located on...
Did they have a plant or just distribution?
Just a big distribution centre there, yeah. So only a team of 7 or 8 people, but good little business.
So that gave you a good grounding to be the roles that you're taking on.
Yeah,
now.
so I'd made the change at that point away from accounting into general business.
Okay, so I know you do have a brother, Scotty.
Scott.
He's interested in the industry, and obviously Dad, your father Bill is as well. And you got a sister as well?
Yeah, I've got a twin sister, Tony. She really hasn't, she's the only one that hasn't been an owner or sort of involved in the industry. So she's really the clever one? She's a smart one. Yeah.
She's a smart one in the family.
That's it.
So when did you, like Mount Gambier, before you went to Mount Gambier, you went to the trots and that, obviously, as a teenager. Did you have horses at that stage, or did you get to them after you sort of got a bit older?
So I was probably around 18, I think, when we first got into the horses, and the way that started, that was in the very early days of people bringing horses out from New Zealand, and Lance Justice was having a bit of success, and back in the day there'd be the article every Sunday about the winners, and a couple of good articles from Dennis Brown and others, and there was just a small snippet that said Lance I think he was doing his 3rd syndicate from New Zealand, and he was looking for some owners. And my brother and I said, Dad, you need to do that. And he was like, oh, I don't know, thought about it. And then eventually we just nagged him. So he gave Lance a call. And Dad and I went out there that night to Lance's, and Lance said, oh, well, actually I'm looking for a syndicate manager of that syndicate, Bill. You seem like you know what you're doing. How about you become the syndicate manager?
Oh, right up Billy's alley.
Right up Dad's alley. And we were mesmerised. Like, Lance was, to me, as a punter and a participant, you know, he was an idol really at the time, and to meet that guy and then get the involvement that we had with him was terrific. So that was a horse called Base Anton. He won a few races, like all new owners. He thought he was a superstar when he won a race on a Monday.
Anyway, yeah.
But ultimately it was a bit of an entree into the sport, and then we just started going out to Lancers every Saturday. He loved having owners out there, and got to know him, got to know the industry. And then probably the next part was Dad really saw that if you wanted to get a real good horse, we tried a few going horses, but if you wanted to get a real good horse, you really had to breed one and buy a yearling. And Dad got right into the breeding, and we'd buy 1 or 2 yearlings every year at the yearling sales. And Gary and Sue Hill would break them in for Lance. And that's how we got to know Gary and Sue. And at that time, Wayne Hill and Danny were young kids, probably 3 and 6, something like that. And I ended up working out there as a stable hand in my racing unis at the Hills.
Is that at Penfield where they still are now?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that was so I became a licensed stable hand, and spent months there working with them, and then every Saturday we go and work there.
So this is before you went to Mount Gambier?
Yeah, this before that.
So how many years? You have 4 years, so you're 18 to 22 or 23, and then you went down to the
so
Mount.
I was there for a while, and eventually migrated across to Lancers, and I just worked there every Saturday, working for Lance, just gearing up horses and feed. I did some driving. I did more with Gary and Sue. Scott was also doing it, my older brother, and him being a couple of years older than me, he was probably the one that got more of the driving.
Yeah, well, he would have just said, go and clean the stables.
Yeah, so I'd make the coffees in the train there for Michael Pearson and Scott and myself. Yeah, Lance would be sleeping at this point in time on a Saturday morning, and we'd work all the horses and feed them up, and we loved it. So great time.
Just looking at that, you'd say your sister Tony might have been clever, but I think Lance was cleverer. He wasn't. He had someone working him and someone getting the coffees and cleaning the yards. He's having a sleep.
Yeah, he'd come out, 9:30, and what am I going to drive now? And off he'd go. But I'm jesting. He worked hard, but
no, it sounds like Peter Thompson's brother David, champion fella in Western Australia. He spent quite a little bit of time on the lounge on Sunday morning, and Karen would be out there working them. So
exactly, but he had 40 horses there. So we'd work, other than the ones that were racing, we'd work them all, and feed them up, etc. And Michael had that place running like clockwork in the day.
So what? Okay, we'll go to Mount Gambier. When you went, like I love Mount Gambier to death. I think it should be upgraded and whatever. Which when we were on the board we were trying to get done, but sort of an election looming and the COVID thing sort of skittled that out of the way, and then it died a bit of a death. But did you race horses with anyone at Mount Gambier? Did you have any interest in it, or you just went on the committee to sort of put a bit of business acumen into it?
Yeah, so I was really more connected back to Adelaide, really, with the ownership and Dad, and so I'd still come back to Adelaide quite a bit, and just got approached. I think it was Kevin McDonough, I can't remember. I think it was him, and he just said, "Look, we want to get some people on the board." The club at the time had significant debt, and were probably technically insolvent, not going so well. And so they just got a whole heap of business people, and we started this top 100 club and got 100 businesses to donate money, and pretty well resurrected the club and got it going really well. But it's always been a hard working committee down there, and great people. So I used to go, obviously, but I didn't sort of race horses in Mount Gambier.
Yeah, I always believe Mount Gambier is like with the climate and the conditions for breeding and racing horses, and being just over the border from Victoria. It's certainly a jewel in the crown, but underused and underdeveloped. But at the moment, I suppose with the trouble in Victoria, we're seeing that it won't be long next year that we'll be racing for more than them in some areas, and they'll be sneaking over, and that's good because it's putting activity in and betting and turnover and interest into the area.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt, even when I lived in Mount Gambier, you'd go to the pub and people would drink Victorian beer, and they followed the VFL probably a little more than SANFL. It's always had a pretty good link to Victoria. It's so close to the border.
Certainly not with harness racing at the moment.
No, it's they're in a world of trouble.
A little bit of trouble. So when you at the time when you were at Mount Gambier, obviously you eventually got married and had children. Did you have a girlfriend in Mount Gambier, or did you wait till you came home? Or?
No, so my present wife, her and I have been together since I was 20, and she went to Mount Gambier with me, and we were engaged, I think, when we went there, and then we got married while we were living in Mount Gambier, but back in Adelaide, and so yes, she's been with me ever since.
Cool.
Despite the horses.
Oh, tolerance, they call it.
Correct.
You got to have one fault. So when you come back to Adelaide, your dad was working, and he was the syndicate guru.
Yeah,
what did your dad do?
Yeah, so Dad's always been the mastermind of all the syndicates. So Dad was an accountant by trade, and my brother's an accountant by trade, and like I said, I started out as an accountant. So Dad would organise it, but it would just be, reading the stud books, and when the catalogue came out for a yearling sale, he'd pore over that for days. We all would, and he'd have his lots that he wanted to buy, and we'd just decide what we're going to go for.
So what's the most you paid for one? Did you only buy it with like the Hartwig crew, or did you have it outside?
We got a few others that joined in with us. A guy called Ross Webb from Spring Gully, he was involved, and another guy called John Chaplin. There's been a few others along the way that have come and gone in the syndicates. But
so this was when they were still selling at Wayville, correct?
No. It varied from different places, but I think down at
Magic Millions had started up, had it?
Yeah, I think it had.
So what's the dearest one you bought?
I think we've paid in the 40s for some. Even in recent times, we've paid that sort of money for some as well.
Yeah, for that. You bought that unhobbled horse, didn't you?
Sir Roman. Sir Roman.
He was a 36,000 something.
Yeah, he was a sale topper, I think, that year, or second, I think it was. Sorry. But what we did, we used to travel around and look at horses. And Dad went to a place called Twin Falls Stud in Victoria, and we bought a couple of yearlings there, and one of them was a horse called Diamond Blue Chip. And that was in that period of when I was in Mount Gambier. And Diamond Blue Chip won the SA Derby with John Justice. So Dad sort of had some horses with John and some with Lance. And that was always his aim, actually, believe it or not. When he got into the game, his aim was to win a Derby. And Dad's always been pretty lucky, and he won a Derby within the first few years of being in the sport, which is hard to do.
Yeah, well, mine was always to win the Breeders' Crown, which I won, and it's sort of been a bit downhill after that. You live off of that for a while, but
you do.
Yeah, the chocolates have run out eventually. So
that's right.
So Scotty was working at Lance's as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he probably hung on a bit longer than I did and stayed involved. So he ended up getting his licence, and he was very much the race night thing with Lance as well. So Scott would be there all day on a Saturday, and he'd have a shower at Lance's and go to the trots that night, so he wouldn't even go home. Like I said, he drove in a few races, and he'd drive all trial nights for Lance.
Really?
He'd drive all night for him, so he just loved it. He and Lance are really good mates even to this day.
So what you bred up? You said that you had to be involved. You bought going horses. You bought some from New Zealand at all, did you? With Lance, he was a great man for people.
Yeah, so we bought a horse called El Nugent, and El Nugent, I think he won 19 races, and he was a pretty good horse. He won his first race here by 30 metres, and we went to Mildura and won the Mildura Guineas with him. He won another couple of feature races at Globe Derby. We ended up going a stint in Perth as well, and he won over in Perth.
So who had him in Perth for you?
I think it was either Gary Hall or Fred Kersley. I think it might be Gary Hall. He had a stint with John Justice as well as Lance, and Lisa drove him, won a race at Moonee Valley with him as well. So he was a pretty nice horse, but lacked a bit of gate speed, and when the bicarb rules came in, that disadvantaged him somewhat.
Oh, right. I won't ask any more. So you said you bred some. What did you? How did you manage to be?
So we bought a couple of mares, and we bred from those mares. But I'd have to say that our breeding program was pretty unsuccessful, and probably it takes such an investment and such a long period of time, and we're really racing enthusiasts. So in the end, we just said, well, let's not get too committed to that, and we'll just do the racing rather than breeding them, just buy yearlings.
Okay, so in this time you had gone to, we talked about the horses and your dad and your brother, and that. When you went to Mount Gambier and you came back, what sort of, I know what you're doing now in your career, what happened from your Mount Gambier till say today?
Yeah, so I came back with Tubemaker / One Steel, and I was there for a total of 15 years and ended up being the state manager, and had sort of got to a level where I couldn't go any further in South Australia. And then I got headhunted for a role at the current company that I'm at, which is Corvest, and got headhunted for the galvanising general manager role. And I did that for a few years. Then there was another division in the company called Easy Struck, which I did for quite a long time. And they're quite a large business all around Australia. And now since around 2017, I've been the managing director of that business. So we're a reasonable sized business. We've got about 270 employees and turn over a bit over 100 mil. We're listed on the stock exchange, so that keeps me pretty busy.
All right, well what we're going to do at the moment is we'll have a short break, and after the break we'll come back and talk about your involvement in basically administration, etc. of the harness racing industry in the state.
Thank you.